Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Relief Podcast. Today, our guest is Corey Berrier. Corey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, brother. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Corey is someone who has worked in a lot of sales environments and has worked with a lot of people over the years. And we got acquainted through the Arete Syndicate Network because we align with a lot of good people. Corey, share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your journey.
Sure. So I just celebrated, my name is Corey Berrier. I just celebrated 14 years without alcohol, not sober, but 14 years without alcohol, which, that's a pretty big deal, I think. But more recently, so I'm a sales coach and sales trainer, and I work with people in the home services industry, plumbing, HVAC, roofing, solar. And the reason is because I'm a pretty good salesman, so good that sometimes I sell myself on BS, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of times we all do. And, sometimes we need that dose of truth, right? Like when you're connecting with somebody, you want to meet them where they are and truly understand their needs rather than, hey, I have to go through this half-hour presentation. I'm like, but I only got 3 minutes.
Right. And when you're talking to people about, having issues with their home, that's a touchy conversation. So you really got to be able to read the room or read the person that you're talking to. Is that pretty spot on?
It is, because not any two people have the same situation. Like let's say last week I talked to somebody who's 3 months behind on their mortgage. They don't have time to wait to work with a real estate agent, interview agents, hope they can trust somebody. They need a solution, right? And the longer you wait, the more painful it gets, right? I mean, sometimes it's not about describing the pain. It's more, hey, let's wake up to reality. And, how do you go about teaching people to be real, right? Because a lot of times in sales, people are fake. And it's slimy, right? And then the real people have to work harder to kind of distinguish themselves from the fake.
That's actually a really good question. I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that before. Complete transparency. I just had to be honest. I had to get honest with myself. I have, again, just to fall back on the fact that I'm such a good salesperson. I might be somebody in front of you. I might be somebody in front of my wife. I might be somebody in front of the neighbor. And like when you carry all those different masks, one day you wake up like me and figure out, I don't even know who the hell I am. Like, what do I even stand for? What is it that I'm here to do? Like, and so this just recently happened with me. As I mentioned, I haven't been sober for 14 years, but as of this past March 26, I stopped smoking weed. So I smoked weed through my last 6 or 7 years of sobriety, so to speak. I wasn't really sober. I was smoking weed. And what I found was I couldn't be, I wasn't being honest with me, and I wasn't being honest with you if I told you that I'd been sober for the last 14 years, knowing that I'd been smoking weed. Now slightly to my defense, well, I don't even know if it's to my defense. Like, I just convinced myself that it was okay. And that's just the truth. And when I got honest with another human being and decided to start sharing what was going on in my life, something happened there. It was super frightening. I'm not going to lie to you. Just kind of putting things out there like I've been putting out on Facebook. You don't know what's going to happen. And fortunately, I've had an overwhelmingly positive response from just being real. And this is why I think, to your point, most people are full of shit. And so a lot of people that are full of shit have reached out to me and said, hey, I'm full of shit, and I don't know how you did that, but I wished I could do that. And the truth of the matter is, what's the worst that can happen? Like, when you get in enough pain, you change. at least for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, when the pain of staying in the situation you're in is greater than the pain of stepping out or solving the problem. I mean, that's the first step of, like you said, recovery. And um, some people argue different things, that weed is part of recovery for some people, but anything can be abused, right? And some of
100%.
us don't have that off button, right? Because we're competitive creatures, right? We want to have the highest sales records. We want to hit the highest number. I mean, think about it in real estate. I mean, how often does somebody ask somebody their worth by their volume size? How many homes did you sell? Well, I'd rather ask people, hey, how many families did you impact? Tell me that story. Tell me how happy that family was to live in a space that fits their needs, right? And they're
Yeah.
like, well, then they look at me like, no, it's not about that. I'm like, what is your coach telling
Right.
you?
Well, I think we're trained to measure our success via financial success. A lot of us, especially people that are business owners, a lot of us measure it by financial, how much you've done financially in whatever realm you're in. And what I found that it's kind of like chasing the money. If you chase the money, it kind of pushes further away from you. And that's just been my experience. If I'm doing something just for the money, it's probably not going to last very long. And that was a lot big part of my life was just chasing the money. And, for right now, so the last 7 or 8 months, I've been working on AI. And I mean, when I say working on it, I've not neck deep in it. And so I stopped consulting for a little while, and that has been a challenge to get back going because, for whatever reason, and I don't know if it was that, the lies I told myself or whatever the case may be, it's not like my ability diminished. I just got completely sidetracked, and we got behind on our mortgage, and I had to borrow money, and but I think, and this is not, I'm not touting my own horn here by any stretch. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt. We got like a foreclosure letter the other day, not a foreclosure letter, like a pre-foreclosure letter saying, hey, you could reach out to these people in North Carolina and they could help you. And I took the step. I made the call because I didn't know exactly how this was going to turn out. I just didn't. But what I did know is I wasn't going to go down. I did know that. And so I call it visualization or faith or whatever you want to fill in the blank with. I usually win. And I would not believe that I wasn't going to win on this one. And my sponsor in AA looked at me like I'm crazy. He's like, I don't understand how you're not freaking out right now. I said, because I don't know how, but I know for sure I'm going to come out of this. And I have. So, that may sound egotistical, but that's just the story. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when we start shaving down, like you said earlier, the mask into our true identity of who we are, there's a lot of grit and drive, right? And sometimes people say, well, what's your why? What's your purpose? You're like, I just want to show you. I want to show myself that I can do this. That's it. I'm going to do this. It's our instinct to survive, right? Sales is a skill that, once learned, like it's transferable across industry, right? And you're using it to train HVAC technicians, right? And there's
That's
a
right.
lot of noise now that, private equity's entering the space. People are growing companies. They're having events. They're getting loud. They're having celebrities on stage, whatever that is, to just, toot their horn, right? And sometimes the horn is good, and sometimes it's not for others, right? So what would you do, like, because people out there, sometimes it's a sole proprietor or a small company in the HVAC space, and this is a field of highly technically trained people, and they have to know all these changes that happen, and they got to respect environmental rules, and then have top shelf professional customer service, and in order to scale they got to have process system and all that stuff, right? How do I know that? Because I'm going through that now. But when you train people, like, how do you go about, like, just meeting them where they are, make them feel comfortable with the process of getting better, but yet uncomfortable with the effort that it's going to take to make sure you win in sales?
That's a great question. So a lot of guys will show up and charge, $30,000 and come in for a week and do sales training. Well, here's the problem with that. If it's not that the training's bad, but you're not going to transform a bunch of technicians in a week. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. And so I go about things a bit different. I do go on site. I do ride with the technicians and I get to know who they are. And I have conversations with them, both personally and business. And it builds trust. And when I have trust with someone, I can get you to change. And so I also follow up for 3 months. I mean, I continue to train these guys virtually for 90 days after I leave that site. And I think that's what really separates me from anybody else out there that's doing what I'm doing. And a lot of those people are being found out right now.
Oh, I think that's just a greater picture for society at large, right? It's kind of like, I hope we're not in end times, but if that's coming, you're going to know pretty quickly who's good and who's not good, right? And sometimes you could say it's our intuition, and sometimes you could say it's experience, right? I mean, if you're talking to a technician and you're kind of just identifying issues of the workplace and what you're dealing with, I mean, if someone's lying to you, how can you either directly call out their bullshit or do it with some kind of kindness and diplomacy?
I ask really good questions. So if I think that you're telling me something that I know is not true, I just ask you a deeper question about it. And I do it with a completely straight face. And I do it with curiosity. Like I really want to know about this thing, whatever it is. And here's the thing, dude. I technically, like the technical side of HVAC, don't ask me any questions about that. Because I can't begin to tell you how to put in a system or how to work on a system, but I can tell you how to sell it. And where another reason why I think that's successful is if you've got an HVAC technician training your other HVAC technicians, what are they going to be like? The original HVAC technician. I'm not a technician, right? I come to it from an entirely different point of view. And so you got to be able to connect with people, and you got, like you said at the beginning of the show, you've got to be able to meet them where they are. And not everybody's open to change. A lot of people are not. So you got to figure out how you can get them open to that change.
And another thing, in the sales presentation, right? Because a lot of times in HVAC, the way I grew up with my dad, there's no sales process. Here's an estimate. Do you like it? Yes or no? Or we'll think about it, right? And a lot of times you're like, well, how do we get over not how do you get over that, but how do I answer that? What's the next step? Because you want to be, like I said, I want to be polite, I want to be mannerly, but I also like to get the work done, right? And so when somebody says, well, what's there to think about, right? And then they say, well, I just don't know. Well, what do you not know about this, right? And then sometimes you feel like you're not only educating people, but you're using consumer psychology to help people, just guide them to a decision that's good for them, right? And then in this space, like, what would you think is the separator? Because there's going to be a washout in trade services, people retiring, people trying to get into this business and can't grow. I mean, talk to that person who just got out of trade school and said, hey, how do I try to sell this air conditioner to this homeowner when they're going to get 2 other quotes today? How do I go about separating myself as a new person, right? Not as an established person who's already set up and just wants to scale their marketing and their company, but just that person who just got their EPA license, right? Just got their insurance and their startup. How do we get them set up for their first sale?
Well, first off, I don't know that they're the best person to be selling it, to be honest, because most technicians, most guys that get out of trade school, they go into the trades because they like working with their hands. They don't really like selling. So I would encourage anybody that's just started any trade business, hire somebody that can help you sell the product because you're really good at fixing stuff. Let's just call it what it is. Bring somebody in that can be passionate about what it is that you can fix or what you can put together, because most likely you're not the best fit for it. I mean, that's just the truth. It's not very likely. I shouldn't say very likely. It's to find a unicorn in this business. It happens. You can find people that are great salespeople that also can do the work, but it's just not super common. And so if you're out trying to find that person, or if you're trying to be that person, I suppose it depends on who you are, but like, I wouldn't be a good HVAC technician. I don't want to sit up in an attic for 3 hours in the middle of summer, turning wrenches. Like, I have zero desire to do that. But I love sitting at that kitchen table, talking to the customer and helping them see the value in what we do and leading them to a decision that is best for them. And if the decision's not best for them, you need to be okay saying that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Being willing to walk away from that sale, and not as a closing technique, but in the interest of what's best for the consumer. If they have a
That's right.
1-year-old system and they have a faulty capacitor, I'm just going to replace that capacitor. I'm
Yeah,
not going
under
to sell them
warranty.
the merit. Exactly. I'm not going to sell them the merits of a new system, and the new technologies that are out there are so advanced that it's worth changing your system. And we have this wonderful financing bill that if you act now but not later, you can get it. And so I've studied these techniques to parody them, not to not to use them, because it's like you're like, that works. I'm like, well, I guess if you boiler room somebody, you make them feel like they have no choice. If it's 110 degrees and that part failed, and this is the only person who answered the call and showed up, yeah, they might get manipulated into a sale. But I love that idea that you brought up of be willing to delegate and outsource what you're not good at, right? And be willing to accept that you can't do all the jobs. You can do a lot of jobs, but you can't do all the jobs. And then, so when somebody's looking to add a salesperson, like what would, at least one question that you would want to ask somebody who's going to join your sales team to see if they want it, if they're hungry enough?
Well, the first question I would ask: are you looking for like a full-time paid position or a commission position? Because that'll tell you if they're good at sales or not. Because any good
Mm-hmm.
salesperson will take a commission job all day long, but you can get paid more money. If you're not a good salesperson, you're going to expect a salary. That'd be the first thing. And I would never pay a salesperson salary, and that be their primary way of making money, because that just means they're going to sit on their rear. We're human beings. Like, ultimately, we all want to be lazy at some point. And so if somebody hands you the same amount of money that the commission guy is going to make, who you think's going to work harder? Not the guy that knows his paycheck's coming in the mail. That's for sure. You know what I mean?
Oh
So I would
yeah, I
also,
mean,
really quick, I would encourage anybody that's coming out of trade school, dude, you got to stick with this, because right now we're in a time where there's, as you mentioned, people are phasing out, and there's very, very, very minimal people coming into the trades. And guess what? You're the new doctors. You will be the new doctors in 10 years. That's how I see
oh
it.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, think about, I just even that if you look up, and again, you're not the HVAC tech, but as HVAC tech, the cost of diagnostic materials, right? I mean, it's a process. I don't just go in there and I think this is wrong with it. I'll just fix this. Like, no, no, no. That part of the system was good. Leave that alone. This is the part of the system that's wrong. And that's why it took 3 other people to come in and out and touch this equipment, because they didn't have the right tools. They didn't have the right skill set or the expertise. They just put up that hat and said, "Oh, I'm doing this." Well, anyone can be a painter, but it takes a little bit of more skill, effort, and talent to become a profession, right? So, when you're working with these business owners, you're using some new tools, right? And the concept of AI, artificial intelligence, it's a new frontier, right? It's helping some people create their content. It's helping some people systemize their life. I mean, how are you using it to help business owners?
So a bunch of different ways, but the newest thing that I've been working on is we built an HVAC chatbot that you can put on your website, not just these regular chat bots that we were used to, like they're worthless. But what this does is we've trained it on a knowledge base through AI, and it will answer customer questions. Any customer question that you want to ask it, it'll answer it, and it's accurate. I mean, like 99% accurate. So, for example, if you've got a customer saying, well, hey, maybe it's 2:00 in the morning, they can't get anybody on the phone. Let's just pretend. And they go to your website and they can ask the chatbot, hey, my air conditioner isn't cooling. It'll say, all right, well, here's some of the things that could be wrong. Would you like to book a call? Or do you have any more questions? And if the answer is no, would you like to book a call? And then it takes that customer straight to the booking page or the calendar that's integrated through. We integrate it through the chatbot. So if it's your calendar, it would just take input, give them options for your calendar, whatever the open spots are that we've programmed it to have, right? And if somebody fills that spot, then obviously the chatbot knows that and doesn't book a time. And so I think it streamlines the ability to communicate with the customer significantly. So we've seen. And think about this, dude. Most people, anybody younger than you and I, they don't want to get on the phone and talk to anybody anyway. So they would rather have a conversation with a bot, and one that's giving you actual information, like, hey, you could go check this part of the AC, or you could check the thermostat here, or you could, I don't know the technical terms, right? I mean, we'll take you as far as a customer should need to be taken before a professional needs to come out.
I mean, that's the roadmap that's necessary, and this is the stuff that we need, right? If you like I said, meeting that consumer that can order a car, order takeout, order their next wife through apps. Why not just go to a mobile web page and order some service, right? But it's not name, email, phone number, because that's like I said, that goes in an inbox that may or may not be responded to timely. And even if it does,
actually,
tell
sorry.
me. No,
Yeah,
please,
so actually it will take all that information because we have to know where to send the confirmation, right? But it's not just a lead form, right? It's not just give us all your information. We walk you through kind of like a sales process, answer the questions you need answered until it gets to the point where it can't answer any more questions, or you don't have any more questions rather. And then when you go to book that call, then it does take your information, and we have it streamlined to where it populates and sends you an email of the whole conversation. So not only is it beneficial and helpful for the customer, but it's also beneficial for the contractor, because now I have every question that you ask my chatbot, and I have all your information. So now when I call you, I can say, oh, it looks like da 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 da, and it's your answers. So, or your questions rather. So it's actually pretty convenient, and
I love that idea.
It's cool.
I love that. That works. I mean, think about this, right? How many times you're like, no, I'll remember. You're like, oh, I'll put in my CRM. You're like, wait, this is what they said. Okay. Hi, from our understanding in our last conversation, this is what you said. Well, that's what they said. So now
Right.
we're just, like I said, we're building a relationship, right? In order to build a relationship, I have to build listening skills, right? But in order to scale it to hundreds and hundreds of customers, I can't remember it all, right? And no matter how
That's
good your
right.
memory is, and the fact that you systemize it, standardize it, as a business owner, my job is to serve the client's needs, not to juggle all the information, because I'd love to juggle as much as possible, but I'd rather just get to the work.
Right.
And if you're streamlining through a process that, like I said, is easy to kind of add on to somebody's website, or that you build a system to ensure their success, yes, it's an investment, but as all tools are, the worthwhile tools, they last, right? And they do evolve over time, but working with, like I said, an established sales champion like yourself, Corey, at least you're going to help them get there, because you've navigated a lot of landscapes, and you have a lot of wisdom and experience to share with people in terms of what works and what's not working, and that means a lot to us in HVAC.
Well, think about this. Like, when you have an act, and this, look, this is going to sound like I'm bagging on after hours people, and maybe I am. But the truth of the matter is, what good does it do for me to call an after-hour service that answers the phone like your company, sounds like your company, but they have zero answers? All they're going to say is, well, we're just the after-hour service. We'll take your name and number and get back with you. Like, what's the point of that? It almost feels like that's a waste of time.
It is, because it's kind of, it's like, imagine, I call it the no help. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you. I'm just here to help you. What do you mean? I'm here to help you. Like, no, that's just the tagline. It's a no help. Like, if you were falling down and I was a lesser person, I'd have my hands out, but I wouldn't try to like keep you from falling. That's why I call that no help. A lot of us are saying, "Hey, I'm just here to help you." I'm like, "Wait, I'm just here to sell you." Hey, once we get on this call, we'll get some clarity. No, I'll put you in a corner and I'll put the heat up so high that if you don't buy, we got a problem here. Or maybe I'll just find your inner trauma and I'll expose it, and that way I'll make you feel bad. But then this product is the solution. Well, we're just selling a service. Are you cold, sir? Yes. Would you like some heat this winter? Because I understand that this furnace is actually rusty, right? And you don't want that in your home. You don't want, so you want to have a happy Thanksgiving, a Merry Christmas, and a happy Halloween if it gets cold early. So, sometimes we got to put a little bit of humor in our chats, right? Because I think humor lightens the mood, right? A lot of times we're tense because there's no trust. Like I said, we've all been burned, life, others, vendors. Maybe you called a contractor and they sounded good. Their Angie and Google reviews were great, but today they had an off day. Right? And that stuff happens, right? And to go to the next chapter, like you wrote a book, right? You want to talk about your book for a moment? And
So as it would have it, 9 simple steps to sell more shit.
Okay, that gets right to the point.
Gets right to the point. But here's what I love about this book, and I put a lot of thought into this. I have ADHD, so the book's pretty thin for people like me, right?
And me,
I guess
and
you
me.
maybe. Yeah. So the first thing that I talk about in here is confidence, because if you don't have confidence when you're selling, most likely you're probably not going to be a very good salesperson. And sometimes you have to manufacture that, and sometimes you just have to know what you're talking about. And so the book, at the very end of it, I do a chapter on ADHD, specifically to outline, why we do some of the things that we do. Because for years, I still take medicine, but I took medicine for years, and I knew it was for ADHD, but I didn't know, like you said earlier, exactly like you said earlier, oh, I'm going to remember that. And then you blank out and you're not going to remember it, right? That's because we have some sort of shortage, or whatever you want to call it, in our brains that tells us we're going to remember. But the reality is we're not going to remember. But we tell ourselves that every single time. And so I interviewed like 53 ADHD professionals before I wrote this book to really understand why we do the things that we do. Because lots of times I would just think, well, maybe you spaz out in the middle of a conversation, forget what you're going to say. Why is that? Like, I just thought that was just, that was just me. But it's not, it is just me. But there's also a part of that, a component to having ADHD that supplements some of the things. Like, I'm sure you've forgotten your AirPods or whatever you listen to music in. I'm sure you've lost them 14 times if you're like me. So,
Yes.
to be totally transparent, I carry I don't carry the fanny pack on my side, but I carry a bag with me everywhere I go that keeps all my important stuff in it. And I don't lose anything. And a lot of people probably wouldn't do that because they're worried about what people would say, but I don't care, dude. It saved me like 90 minutes a day looking for stuff. No joke.
That's worth money. that adds up.
Heck yeah.
If somebody bills out $100 an hour, 90 minutes, $150, right? Looking around the house, being stressed while you got to manage tasks. Right? Now you're talking to me. So I always thought fanny pack was, not for, for most men, but it makes sense. It makes sense to carry something instead of a backpack or a briefcase. You're like, you know what? The essential items, because I got to keep my hand free to shake yours, okay?
Right.
To greet you, okay? Oh, what are you going to do? Make fun of me for a moment? Okay, who cares? Get over it. There's only one joke you can make. You can only make one joke. It looks silly. That's it.
Right.
Hi, where's your
Right.
stuff? It's right here. Hey, you got a pen? It's right here. You got a notepad? Right. Oh, how about the phone? How about a battery charger? It's all there. Right.
It's all there.
You know, and if you put it like over your shoulder, I think they say it's a European thing or something. You'll upgrade. You'll go Metro on that, and it'll
Right.
promote you. But the thing is, you got to be ready. You got to be prepared, right? And if that helps, I mean, I'm looking into some of these techniques because I never took the drugs. Like I said, Adderall was never a thing for me. I've tried it 3 times in my life because a friend would give it to me, and I'm like, wow, this stuff's good. But then people warn you that you, like I said, like all drugs, you can abuse it, you can overuse it, and
That's right.
ultimately, it's up to us to build routines, habits, and disciplines that fit us, not fit what some author wrote. But if you write a clear, concise guide on how most people can sell more, because right now you have to sell more. It's not, hey, would you like to make more money and get into these 6, 7, 8, 9 figures? No. Hi, do you understand that the cost of living went up 30%? And if you don't make 50% more money next year, you're going to suffer. So, like, wake up to reality. Add these tools to your business. Consult Corey for, like I said, improving your sales process. And then you have a podcast too. I mean, I actually really enjoy some of the guests that you bring on your show because there's a lot of real there. And when I listen to other people's podcasts, boy, it's just I tune out. I'm like, how, are they talking to each other or around each other? And you're a very direct person, so I respect the hell out of that. And like I said, what you stand for and where you're going, that means a lot to me. So talk to me, like, what inspired you to start a podcast, and what kind of guests you like to attract to your show?
Ironically, I started the podcast in 2019, and this is how it started. You'll appreciate this story because you'll know the guy I'm talking about. I was at the Arte event in 2019, and I was standing near Ryan Williams, and I didn't know anything about Ryan Williams. But I knew that he's a guy that I wanted to get to know. And so I walked up and I got a picture with him, and I just looked at him and I said, "Hey, you should be a guest on my podcast." I knew nothing about him. He was like, "Dude, of course." And I'm almost shit because I had a mic, but it was in a box. Like, I had no earthly idea what I was doing. I did have a show slug, so I wasn't lying. I did have a podcast, but I just never recorded anything on it. And so Ryan came on, and I almost died when I looked at it, like his follower count. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I picked somebody that, like, he had like 150,000 followers 3 years ago or something. And so that's kind of how it started, with not much aim, to be honest. I just interviewed people that I wanted to interview, and now it's taken a really specific, I'm very specific about bringing contractors on. I really don't bring anybody on outside of the contractor space. And, just recently, I guess last week, we got, so it ranked top 3% in the world, which, maybe is not as good as some people, but for me, that's pretty cool. So,
That's still
it's
still
around
A plus.
contractors.
That's still an A plus. Okay, when you go from what is it, 95, and I didn't get these grades too often, so I think it's 95 through 99 and 100. If you're in the top 3%, wow. I mean, that's a margin of error. That's not.
Right.
Like, you have to remember, 1%ers get shit on all the time. People.
That's right.
They got a psychological block against the 1%ers, but 3%ers are still relatable. So don't feel bad.
It's a lot of work, though. I mean, as you
It
well
is.
know, I mean, it's not just popping on here and having a conversation and then, pressing a button and sending it off into the ether. Like, there's a lot of work. If you want it to grow, you got to do a lot of work behind the scenes to make that happen. And forever, I was stuck at 5%. I mean, like 2 years. And I just really didn't have a clue if I was going to ever break that. But we did. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm pretty jacked about it.
No, I'm glad. And you have to remember, see, you ASKUGET, right? You went up to somebody who didn't know you from Jack, except the room you went into, right? And actually, I was in that same room too. October 26, 2019, right? I was just some
Yep.
dumb kid who just joined Arete, like not even a year before. And boy, was I like imposter syndrome. Who are these people? Who are these people on stage? Right? And as time continued, I continued in this group, I got better, right? In my communication style. Do you think I could have this communication 2 years ago with you? Right? The people that on the caliber that you talk to? No way. But I worked on it, right? Just like sometimes you work in public and sometimes you work in the dark, right? Sales scripts, reading books, taking the effort, failing multiple times, right? And then continuing, right? So when you, like I said, that actually helps me because I'm early in this, right? I'm like a not failure to launch, but a delayed launch. And so I'm thinking, well, who would want to hear me? And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm quite a character. So why am I keeping this from people? Right. And so are you. And so, when you bring on people, you're learning from each other. Right. And then you take that into your work, into your communities, into your social circles, right? And everybody gets better because all we got to do is just have that intention to serve. Right. And then build, we could build a sale, but either way, we're building goodwill with each other. And like I said, that's a
That's right.
culture that I admire, that you're supportive of. And like I said, I have a lot of respect for you, your journey, where you are, where you're going, where you're taking things. And if people want to reach out to you, learn more about you, how to work with you, what's the best way to do that?
Best way to do that is just you shoot me a text would be the easiest way to do it. Because honestly, I try to keep everything in one spot because if not, I may not ever get back to you. And you can just shoot me a text at 919-896-9999. And that's not a fake number. That's really my number.
Let's say that one more time. Let's say that one more
Yep.
time and slowly, because Corey is offering his phone number. Okay, first of all, that's ballsy. All right, which I love working with ballsy, courageous people. Right, and say that one more time to anybody out there who's looking to reach out to Corey.
Sure. 919.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Corey. Like I said, any last pieces of wisdom or inspiration you'd like to share with the audience?
Look, the way that you get past the fear of doing whatever that thing is that you're fearful of. Now, I don't mean you specifically, anybody, is you just got to step into the ring and you just got to get your teeth kicked in a few times and you just got to take the losses, because if you don't do that, your experience is never going to grow. It's never going to grow. You're never going to get better. You can't win on the sidelines. You just can't do it.
Wow. Well, you're definitely a man in the arena. And as a fellow fighter, like I said, I respect other fighters. I don't care where you took your scar. I don't care where you took a fall, but you got up, right? And that inspires other people to get up and rise.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Relief Podcast. It's my sincere intention that you learn something or that you grew from our time together. And if you have ideas for future episodes of who you'd like to see on the show, please send us an email at freedom@realestatérelief.com. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.